Good evening, everybody. Today we'll be talking on the colonic carcinoma part 2. Yesterday, those of you who attended could have understood about the anatomy, embryology, something to do with the polyposis coli and various types, adenomatous and amatomatous polyp, how they turn malignant, what is the risk rate, how to surveil, and a very good applied anatomy. We had a look yesterday. Today I'm planning to talk on treatment aspect of it for colonic carcinoma, starting from the right colon up to the sigmoid. Why I'm telling sigmoid particularly means whenever you are doing a sigmoid resection, it has to be a rectosigmoid resection with something like a low anterior resection. That's why I'm telling that. We'll go ahead with the class now. It's totally about 16 participants have come. They are likely to join us. One check, We'll today talk under the following headings: the pathology, clinical features, staging, and management. The management in the form of investigation, treatment, and follow-up. There is a gross pathological look in the imaging. It's in the form of, or through an endoscopy, it's in the form of annular, which is very common on the left side because the left-sided lesions are annular and stenotic, more of fibrant content, fibrous content. Next comes the tubular, which extends more than 2 centimeter. It becomes tubular. Then a pure and simple ulcerated one, which is more prone for earlier infiltration to the various layers of the colon, also the extracolonic area. The other one is a cauliflower, an exuberant growth inside the lumen. The annular one causes the obstructive symptoms. Here, one thing I would like to tell you is the obstructive symptoms are usually due to a pathology on the left side colon. Very rarely the right side colon comes. For the following reason, the right side colon is capacious. The right side colon, the contents are liquid. The variety is usually ulcerative and cauliflower type. They usually come to you on the right side colon with failure to thrive, gross cachexia, anemia, and so on. Whereas on the left side, they come to early because it's a stenotic lesion. And if you remember, the left side colon has got a narrower diameter compared to the right side, the transverse colon, and the portion is solid. So they go in for frequently an obstructive symptom. The other complications is bleeding. It can also lead to perforation in some other cases. So now you can see this is a polypoidal lesion occurring somewhere there. Then comes, this is the polypoid lesion in the right colon. Then comes the annular variety. This is the tubular variety. This is the polypoidal cauliflower type, exuberant intraluminal growth. This is ulcerative, which is early, prone to get involved into the deeper structures. That is, all the layers of the colon as well as the extracolonic tissues. Histological variant, it can be a mucinous adenocarcinoma. It's in general, it's called the colloid carcinoma, and it also signifies that it is an extracellular colloid. Whereas a signet ring is an intracellular colloid, which pushes the nucleus to one side, appears in the form of signet ring. The prognosis is very bad. The other one is a spindle cell adenocarcinoma. Other one is an undifferentiated adenocarcinoma. The other variety is called medullary micropapillary serrated cribriform and sarcoma, which is only of theory interest. You can see how nicely the glands are seen. And you can see the spindle-shaped cells are seen here. And you can see extensive extracellular colloid. This type of carcinoma, which is otherwise known as colloid carcinoma, is especially prone to cause multiple fistula in ano. So remember that. One of the causes for multiple fistula in ano is the colloid carcinoma, the sigmoid or left-sided colon or rectum. Clinical features: right colon, melena, I told you, fatigue, anemia, abdominal pain in advanced cases, obstruction is rather very less common, but you can still get if it encroaches onto the ileocecal junction, causing something like a terminal ileal obstruction. Left colon, usually there's constipation because of the narrowness of the growth, narrowness of the size of the colon, and also it is solid motion. So alternate constipation and diarrhea is a classical future scenario. How does it happen? A constipated stool acts as a bolus which comes and obstructs the lumen. It can cause a stercoid ulceration at the site of impaction. Then, proximal to it, the colon starts distending. If unfortunately the patient has got a competent ileocecal well, it becomes a closed loop obstruction which causes earlier distension. Physiology, the pathophysiology must be knowing. A distended bowel anywhere has got poor absorption and excess secretion. So a lot of fluid accumulates above the motion. At one time it stretches the narrowed part of the colon. The patient is having a profuse diarrhea. So alternate constipation and diarrhea is one of the phenomena of a left-sided colonic malignancy. Sigmoid usually comes with fever, varicolic abscess and so on, and is always confused with diverticulitis. Only endoscopy will reveal it, or a good virtual colonoscopy, or a double contrast enema will show you about the diverticulum. Is it a pre-malignant condition? Not proved. Hematochezia, pausing, frank, bloody slime. What are other things? If it involves the ureter, the patient may go in for an hydronephrosis. It may be silent, which will be visible only on the CT scan. If it is on the right side, it is infiltrating or obstructing the lateral wall of the duodenum in the second part, because you know the anterior and lateral relationship is the stomach flexion and ascending colon. That can cause colonic obstruction. If it is near the sigmoid, if it is very much near, if it is a colloid carcinoma or an IBD becoming a malignancy, you can get a colovesical fistula where the patient will give a classical history of pneumaturia. In slang, it is called soda water urine. Urine comes in will burr like the bubbles will come. That is very classical of a colovesical fistula. The other symptoms mean cachexia, ascites, and anorexia. Ascites is a bad sign. That means there is a carcinomatosis peritoneum. Anorexia is due to malignancy. Cachexia is again due to advanced malignancy. Investigation. To start with, we start with sigmoidoscopy and proctoscopy. If it is a lower down growth or if something above intersuscepting into the rectum, we can just make it out with a proctoscope, and then you do a completion colonoscope to see whether there is any synchronized lesions and also to find out the length of the lesion. So the commonest being to start with a proctoscope, then a sigmoidoscope, or if you've got a good colonoscope, the colonoscope is the best because it can completely see the colon. The double contrast barium enema is slowly going out of vogue because the cumbersome procedure, a timely air to be insufflated into it, it takes little more time. CECT and MRI has changed the complete outlook regarding the pre-operative and post-operative staging of the procedure, especially in recurrent disease and so on. Visceral colonoscopy is nothing but a CT colonography who are not patients for colonoscopy because of general conditions. PET imaging is coming in a big role, but its role as a routine in colonic malignancy, when you're going to give the patient a new adjuvant therapy, if the patient is in stage 3 or stage 4 disease, where you want to rule out an extra colonic malignancy, and also find out how many extra colonic areas are affected. The commonest being liver, the next being filter being the lung, then you can go into the cerebral as well as for a bony secondary. That is where the PET imaging is also useful in recurrence of the disease. Investigation continued. These are the tumor markers, carcinoembryonic antigen is being commonly done. Then chest radiography to rule out any cannonball appearance or anything like that. A complete blood picture to find out whether the patient is anemic or not. whether he requires a preoperative blood transfusion, a perioperative blood transfusion in a colon and cancer malignancy, or malignancy per se brings down the immunity and the recurrence rates become high. So it's preferable to give a preoperative blood and increases the blood, the hemoglobin level, then go ahead with surgery. LFT as a routine to find out whether there is any ALP increase. An ALP increase clearly suggests you that there is a hidden secondary somewhere, because the first biochemical parameter to go up is an AFP. Instantly you can see whether there is any static bilirubin and so on. And the patient is a cirrhotic, you can find out through that. The RFT is a must to rule out possibility of any renal dysfunction, which will prevent you to doing a contrast enhanced CT. And RFT is must. One more thing, the RFT may go up in extreme conditions of ureteric obstruction, which is rather uncommon. Genetic testing for RAS and BRAF antigen, tumor antigens. Then mismatch repair genes and microsatellite instability status also can be made out. Whenever you are sending for a good biopsy, you will have to find out all this. Colonoscopy is the gold standard. Direct visualization, biopsy can be taken. Synchronous leanness or other polyps can be looked for. You can tattoo an area if there is a small lesion, so that future you can visualize it, what is going on here. Thus you can nicely see a colonic growth here, that's the lumen. There is a colonic ulcerated growth. This is actually a double contrast barium enema done without sedation, very low risk, identifies lesion in the entire colon, accurately visualizes the strictures area. But this has been completely replaced by the CT. Disadvantage is radiation, unable to take biopsy, hence a colonoscopy is subsequently required. It can be usually used as a roadmap. This you can see a nice apple coring appearance of the colon, where there is a normal lumen. This is nothing but an apple core. Beautifully taken barium contrast. Double contrast barium enema. Oh, this is again a normal barium enema, which is showing a polypoidal growth in the cecum. This is a cecum, this is a thing, ascending colon, this is a transverse colon going to the splenic structure. You can nicely see how capacious is the cecum, how horrible is this dangerous fellow, not to cause symptom at the earliest so that the patient gets operated. This fellow will get ulcerated, he'll bleed, he will not have, patient will have malignant cachexia, they land with you very late. This is the danger, when the motion is liquid, no obstruction at all. That's the danger about right-sided colon. CECT, it sees the relation and the extent of the disease to the nearby organs. And the involvement of the adjacent organs can be made out. Lymph nodal involvement, both the epicolic, paracolic, first and sentinel nodes, everything can be made out. Metastasis can be made out very easily in the lung. Secondary complications like obstruction. There are certain amount of growths are likely to intercept, especially when the growth occurs at the cecal level. It's likely to intercept over the terminal ileum. So this is interception can be made out. Fistulous communications can be made out. Perforation can be made out in the form of a pericolic abscess and a collection with the air packets in that. Very common in the left side of the colon. Descending colon cancer, it's more like a tubular malignancy with narrowing. You can nicely see the extensive liver metastasis that is occurring in both lobes of the liver. Now CT versus MRI. MRI is superior in local staging of the disease. Both have similar sensitivity in nodal and distal spread. CT is superior in detecting small pulmonary metastasis. Small hepatic metastasis, MRI is excellent, which is not being picked up by the CT. Or nowadays, endo-ultrasound, that laparoscopic ultrasound or perioperative ultrasounds have come to find out. Virtual colonoscopy is more a CT, where you can see the complete luminary colon. It is showing the endoluminal view of 3D view. Virtual colonoscopy, 3D luminograph showing there is a narrowing and pushing up of the colon, the fecal wall. It is being retracted by the mass. This acts as a leading thing for an intercession where the terminal ileum will intercede. The same specimen is being shown. This is trying to intercept over the ileum. That acts the head. This one acts as a head. So this is about the PET scan. False positive things are more, but it shows nicely the colonic malignancy here. This is the liver metastasis here, and also it shows an adrenal metastasis here, and this is normal. This is equivocal with CT and MRI. So, but usually we don't do as a routine. We do it only when you are taking the patient, condemning him totally and going in for a palliative chemoradiation, or when we are going to take the patient for a neoadjuvant therapy to downstage the disease and then take. These are the two situations. The third being to find out the recurrence and extracolonic metastasis. Suspected recurrent colorectal cancer, raising CEA level in the absence of an obvious tumor. Again, you do a CEA. Staging curative resection for known metastasis. Distinguish local reference from post-treatment changes. Very difficult otherwise to note from the mesoblastic reaction with the local recurrence. The PET scan make it easy. In less sensitivity in mucous carcinoma because of the poor cellularity. TNM classification, T staging, TX primary is not assessed. No evidence of tumor, T0, in situ, intraepithelial, all the three. This one is easily available if it is approachable for an transmucosal excision or a mucosal dissection. Next is T1 submucosa, T2 is muscularis propria, T3 is muscularis propria into the pericolic colorectal tissues, T4A visceral peritoneum, T4B nearby structures. There is a TNM, end staging, no nodes, cannot be assessed, no nodes, metastasis N1A, one regional node. Now it has become what 2 or 3 rather than epicolic, pericolic, and so on. N1B is 2 or 3, N1C is tumor deposits in the subserosa, mesentery, or non-peritoneal pericolic perirectal tissue without a regional lymph node metastasis is taken as N1C. It's something like a serosal deposit. N2 into 4 or more regional lymph nodes, N2A 4 to 6, N2B 7 or more lymph nodes. This is what the latest nodal staging in TNM classification. Distant is no metastasis. M1 is again divided to M1A and M1B. M1A is confined to the organ only one, either lung or liver or ovary or a non-regional node, that is a sentinel node, or the left supraclavicular node. M1B is more than one organ or the site or the peritoneum. This is histological grading. GX cannot be assessed, G1 well differentiated, 2 is moderately differentiated, G3 is poorly differentiated, G4 is undifferentiated. Stage 1, you can go through the pictures nicely. You can see the tumor is involving only the mucosa, low lymph nodal involvement. It is stage 0. Please go through this carefully, it is useful. You can remember it. Then, now it is going into submucosa, stage 1, but no muscularis propria is involved, no lymph node. So clear, this is stage 1. Stage 2A, it has involved the muscularis propria, all the lymph nodes are free. This is 2A. 2B is, it is going beyond the muscularis propria and infiltrating the perirectal tissues. Stage 3B, with no lymph node. Stage 3C, it is well breached the visceral peritoneum. So these are stage 3A, 3B, and 2A, 2B, and 2C. Please see that. Up to this, breaching Now it has breached the visceral peritoneum also, but no lymph nodes anywhere. Stage 3A with lymph nodal involvement, 1 to 3 lymph nodes, but up to the muscularis propria. Now here this is 4 to 6, but involving only the submucosa. So here the stage differs either with the lymph node more or the infiltration more. Both are 3A. 3B again breach the visceral peritoneum with lymph nodal metastasis. Not breach, but 4 to 6 nodes. Here 1 to 3 nodes. It is well within the muscularis propria, but it is more than 7 nodes. All are 3B. Please note down this. These pictures are very difficult to get. Or Kiran has got it nicely. It is really a very good thing. All of you should keep in your library with all these PPTs. We will be sending you. Stage 3C is 4 to 6 nodes breaching the visceral peritoneum. If you go back, breaching but only 3 nodes. Breaching with 4 nodes, 4 to 6 nodes. No breaching but more than 7 nodes. Breached with 1 or more nodes. All are 3C. Metastatic disease. The metastatic disease can be into the liver, into the distant lymph node, Wernicke's node, or it can be into the lung, it can be into the brain, it can be into the abdominal wall, ovary, or it can be even over the bone. Treatment, management of malignant polyp. First, we will go with the endoscopic polypectomy. Indication for surgery after this one is this. Endoscopic polypectomy is nothing but removal of the whole polyp through a snare, making cautery at that side without making an opening in the colon, and the excised specimen is proved to be free of the margins, free of tumor. Indications after polypectomy: segment gets fragmented, margins cannot be assessed. Unfavorable histology. This grading is 3 to 4. Lymphovascular invasion is there, and there are positive margins. Then you will have to do a regular surgery that's being done. Pathological staging. Follow the parameters should be reported in polypectomy specimen. That is, if these are not there, then we can leave it. If these are there, then we can go in for a surgical treatment. Grade, depth of penetration, number of lymph nodes evaluated, and number positive, status of proximal, distal, radial, and mesenteric margins, lymphovascular invasion, perineural invasion, tumor deposits. This is what we will have to see. So, little elaborate one. Leisurely listen to it, and we will send you the PPT. For this, invasive non-metastatic malignancy, surgery is the mainstay of treatment. Removal of the primary with adequate margin, even if it requires a multi-organ resection, you are supposed to give an R0 resection. Most of the organs resected are the nearby stomach, very rarely pancreas, tail and head of the pancreas. Tail and spleen can be removed in some of the cases. Minimum resection margin of 5 cm. Regional lymphadenectomy. Restoration of continuity of the bowel. Extension of the resection depends on the lymphatic drainage, the vascular supply, involvement of the adjacent organ, and circumference resection margin. This is in general principles, but we will talk about it at various levels. Surgical resection is based on the location of the tumor. If it is on the right side, from the cecum to anywhere in the ascending colon, right hemicolectomy is the treatment. If it is somewhere in the hepatic flexure of the colon, extended right hemicolectomy. If it is near the left colon, extended left hepatectomy. That is in the stomach flexure of the colon. Here, it is only in the left colon, left hemicolectomy. When the sigmoid is resected, it's usually a rectus sigmoid resection. Right hemicolectomy, the structures removed are the cecum and the ascending colon. Ileocholic artery, right colic artery. Here, you must take a part of transverse colon also. You understand? for a right hemicolectomy. Cecum only, yeah. Cecum sending colon only. Even then, our okay. Here it comes. Proximal transverse colon. Ileocolic artery. Oh, this only location. Cecum and ascending colon. For that, you have to ligate the ileocolic artery, a right colic artery, right branch of the middle colic artery. The bowel removed of the terminal 6 centimeter the ileum, right colon, and proximal transverse colon. All these are removed up to this. It's a shadow that is given. This is classical right hemicolectomy. So this is a routine question that is being asked in the examination viva. What is right colectomy? What are the vessels you ligate? Please see to this. Extended right hemicolectomy, somewhere in the splenic flexure, the hepatic flexure of the colon. Proximal, 2/3 of the transverse colon is taken off. Branches ligate into the ileocolic, right colic, and the whole of the middle colic at the trunk, where there is only the right branch, here the whole of the thing. If it is the transverse colon, you do an extended right hemicolectomy, ileocolic, right colic, middle colic, terminal ileum, ascending colon, descending colon. Length of the burgle, terminal ileum to the descending colon. Yeah, extended. To the descending colon, to the left of the hepatic splenic flexure. Correct. Up to this, we'll have to take. This is extended right hemicolectomy. Now again, I'll tell you. Ileocolic, right colic, middle colic, same vessels. But the extension should be little beyond. Here the shadowing is little less. This is to the right here, so that's why it's got confused. Somewhere here you got this. You understand? This splenic flexure must go a little beyond here without ligating the left colic artery. Here you shadowed it properly, it's not visual. So this is all, now that's okay. Oh, what is this? So here it has come up to that. That is extended right hemicolectomy. Now this is the splenic flexure is involved. You have to do an extended left colectomy. Short of the sigmoid, the whole of the colon must be removed. Things are the mid-transverse colon, descending colon, left colic splenic flexure, left colic artery, left branch of the middle colic artery, mid-transverse and descending colon, leaving the right colon intact. This is the portion that is given. This is extended left hemicolectomy. But what we usually do is we go up to the hepatic flexure, mobilize this and anastomosis. It gives a better clearance. But this is theory-wise, it's okay. So what you do is hepatic flexure, distal 2/3 of the transverse colon and proximal 2/3 of the descending colon are resected. The arteries are ligated this. Left branch, middle colic, left colon. This is left hemicolectomy. Pure and simple starts at the distal 1/3 of the transverse colon. You remove up to the sigmoid. Then you anastomose at the exactly at the rectum. This is left hemicolectomy. This can even be called as an anterior resection. This can be even be called as an anterior resection. The vessels are the left colic and sigmoid vessel. Distal 1/3 colon, descending colon, part of the sigmoid. So left hemicolectomy. If it is little come down, then it becomes an anterior resection. Lymphadenectomy, mesocolic excision is an important thing. Ligation, central vascular ligation, free from the disease. Necrotic nodes is an independent prognostic factor in stage 3B and stage 3C disease. Minimally invasive procedure, it is very much come into vogue because the visualization is good. It should be done only by an experienced surgeon. It should not be done by a locally advanced disease. It should not be done in intestinal obstruction and perforation. Consider preoperative marking of the lesion so that you can precisely do a right hemicolectomy or a left hemicolectomy or extended right left, because in a minimally invasive surgery, the marking is more important. And also to take away the draining lymph nodes. Obstructive colonic cancer is usually a stage 4 disease. Common in left colon, emergency expression, resection of the tumor, Primary anastomosis is not at all preferred in the left colon. Endostomy with distal stump closure, that is Hartmann's procedure, or you can bring it even as a mucus fistula if you are not doing a Hartmann's. Primary anastomosis we do not do at all. If you are doing, it should be a well-prepared colon that is not possible in an obstructive lesion. So you have to do an on-table colonic preparation if the patient is hemodynamically stable. Otherwise, you must do an ostomy and a mucus fistula or an ostomy with a Hartmann's procedure. What's the Hartmann's? The tumor is resected, ostomy, then the distal stump is closed. That's called the Hartmann's procedure. But the amount of resection that has been done may not be sufficient proximally, but in a patient with a compromised hemodynamic status, we'll have to do that. Otherwise, a classical this thing is being done, and this is brought as an endostomy. This is done as a Hartmann's procedure. Depends on how good surgeon you are, what are you going to do, how the condition of the patient over the table. This is mucus fistula and endostomy for an obstructed lesion with the resection. Sometimes you do a proximal ostomy alone in case it's required if the patient has got an advanced disease. Proximal ostomy alone and distal mucus fistula, sucking out the whole thing, resecting the portion, and send the patient for a neoadjuvant chemotherapy to revise the surgery. These are the obstetric colonic cancer where you can put a self-expanding metallic stent. This is how it is being done. This can be for purchasing time if there is an obstruction without perforation. Before you take the patient for surgery, regular surgery, by sending the patient for neoadjuvant chemotherapy or chemoradiotherapy, depends on the site of the lesion. Adjuvant therapy, stage 2B, stage 2C, stage 3. What is that? Lymphovascular invasion and perineural invasion. This is what I wanted you to make it all. Lymphovascular invasion and perineural invasion, bowel obstruction, localized perforation, closed and intermediate, indeterminate or positive margins, inadequate sample nodes, less than 12. For any sampling, minimum of 12 nodes should be sampled. Then only your nodal excision is proper. These are adjuvant therapy is indicated on all these cases. Not indicated in stage 1 disease, patient with microsatellite instability factor is high. If you do that, then you don't do. Then stage 2A, there is nothing. So microsatellite instability, lymphovascular invasion, and perineural invasion. I'm not well acquainted with all these acronyms. Abbreviations. What is that? Abbreviations. Regimens for adjuvant therapy, Folfox regime, leucovorin, calcium is also known as folinic acid, 5-fluorouracil on oxaliplatin, Capox, Ceftazidime, bin, and oxaliplatin, bolus 5-FU with leucovorin or oxaliplatin, Fox regime. These are the adjuvant therapies that are being given following your surgery. Now, there is one thing which has come very much called the neoadjuvant therapy for esophagus. For almost all the malignancy that has come, some of the malignancies not proved to be of much, even for borderline malignancies of the pancreas. All these, the neoadjuvant, especially rectum, low rectum, and the anal canal, and as well as colon, lot of neoadjuvant therapy has come, and that is very much in favor for colonic and rectal malignancies. Perioperative chemoradiation. If it's a pure and simple colonic disease, the radiation is not that much advocated because, especially the tumor involving the right side colon and otherwise, they do not require a radiation because focused radiation is not possible. But a chemoradiation is a must for the rectal diseases that are going into the pelvis. Neoadjuvant or adjuvant radiation therapy delivered concurrently with IFU. But this you be careful radiation. I'm not very comfortable. Indicated in T4 tumors penetrating to fixed structures, recurrent disease, locally unresectable or inoperable tumors. By doing a chemoradiation, what are the things let me tell you? By doing a chemotherapy, you are trying to prevent a systemic disease spread by knocking out the systemically circulating malignant cells. But the radiations is more for sterilizing the area so that the disease-free interval is more. You don't mobilize and send the malignant cell into the systemic system while doing a surgery. All these areas, the radiation is better. And the local resected margin, free of the margin, is more when you're doing a radiation. But this is usually a chemoradiation is combined for the rectosigmoid growth up to the anal canal. Whereas with caution, you must use radiation for the other thing. But in specialized center, they still use radiation. But the amount of radiation interact with other things produced is so much. Some other people are going only with the chemotherapy. Don't go ahead and say. Management of colorectal liver metastasis. Liver is more than lungs. 20 to 30 are synchronous liver mets. At the same time, you find it. Standard treatment is resection. If resection is not feasible, image-guided ablation using SBRT, hepatic artery infusion, radioembolization, transcatheter arterial chemoembolization. All these can be done when you are doing a synchronous lesion to bring down the size of the lesion. First you do a primary, later on you do this. If there are very minimal, peripherally approachable, you can at the same time ablate using a radiofrequency ablation, cryoablation, microwave ablation, or percutaneous ethanol injection, or intraoperatively. Now, even in minimally invasive surgery, they got all these probes for approachable area of the liver. It should be periphery. It should be less than 3 centimeters in diameter. It should not be more than 5 in a lobe. All these are indications for a local therapy. Metastatic peritoneal carcinomatosis, nothing can be done. Hyperthermic intraperitoneal chemotherapy is still debatable. It makes the patient sick. When such a patient comes, tender, loving care and leave them alone. Whatever they want in life, give them. They may not survive long. Early demise is better. Systemic therapy, again, it is a very cumbersome thing for a distant metastatic disease. But we cannot do anything other than give it for the possible patients without reduction of their general condition and general ability to take. If there is any indication to withdraw immediately and pray for the early demise of the disease. Biologic drug therapy is coming very much. Bevacizumab and cetuximab. All are coming. One is preventing the vascular endothelial growth factor inhibitor. The other one is the epidermal growth factor receptor inhibitor. These are coming, but not come very much in the clinical practice. Surveillance, colonoscopy at 1 year, repeat at 3 years, and every 5 years. This is for stage 1. If advanced adenoma is detected, then repeat every year. This is surveillance. Stage 2 and 3, history and physical examination every 3 to 6 months for 2 years. Then every 6 months for 5 years. CEA 3 to 6 monthly for 2 years. And 6 monthly followed by 6 monthly for 5 years. Colonoscopy 1 year, 3 year, and every 5 years. This is the stage 2 and 3 disease. Chest, abdomen, and pelvic CT, half yearly to yearly for up to 5 years. This is the surveillance protocol. Go a little too much. If someone of you can interested, if the person is asked, you can write about it. We will send you the PPT, then you can go through it again. Because I had to rush because there's a lot of slides. CT, chest, abdomen, pelvis, CEA levels every 3 to 6 months for first 2 years. After adjuvant therapy, after 6 to 12 months for up to 5 years. This is for stage 4 disease. Thank you.